If you've listened to this show for a while, you've probably noticed we keep coming back to trust. And I swear we're not doing it on purpose. It just keeps showing up all over the news. So every week when we're talking about AI, cloud security, identity, incident response, any of that stuff, it always comes back to this question of what assumptions were people trusting that turned out to not be true. And this week, that question kind of takes an interesting turn because it's not just us asking it, it's the people building the technology. So this week we'll look at an AI agent that inherited authority it was never meant to have, how AI is reshaping bug bounty programs, another major breach at Origin Energy, why employees at OpenAI, Anthropic, and other frontier labs are publicly asking governments to help slow down AI development, and I'll sit down with Dan Petro to talk about catching cheaters in Super Smash Bros. Melee, where trust, verification, and adversarial thinking are just as important as they are in cybersecurity. This is Initial Access. I'm Sean McMillan, Community Manager here at Bishop Fox, and I'm joined today by Sergio Villegas, Senior Managing Analyst, and Kendrick Urbaniak, Senior Operator. Gentlemen, thanks for stopping by.
Always a pleasure.
As always, before we get into the headlines, I want to do a quick look at what's coming up around Bishop Fox, and oh boy, is it a lot. If you're heading to Black Hat, come say hi. I'll be at booth 5200, and I'll be there throughout the week meeting folks, recording interviews for the show. So if you're around and you've always wanted to tell me how wrong I am about something, this is your big chance. Then over at DEF CON, we've got a packed schedule with talks across several villages, including AI Village, Cloud Village, Red Team Village, Game Hacking Village, where Dan Petro will be presenting, Noob Village, and OSINT for Good. If you're making the rounds, you're probably going to run into a fox. And if you're not going to Vegas, we've got a couple virtual sessions coming up. On August 4th, join the Cosmos team here for the prioritization problem, why more findings don't mean less risk, a discussion on continuous threat exposure management, cutting through AI-generated noise and focusing on what attackers can actually exploit. And that'll have our own Richard Brown, friend of the show, on that. Then on August 25th, we've got another virtual session coming your way. And that is going to be Where AI Breaks, Field Notes from Gen AI and Agentic Testing. So, with that out of the way, let's get on to our top stories. First up this week from the Hacker News, ChatGPT Agent Forger flaw could deploy rogue workspace agents via a phishing link. Zenity Labs disclosed Agent Forger, a flaw in OpenAI's ChatGPT agent builder where a URL parameter meant to pre-fill a prompt box was instead automatically submitted and executed the moment the page loaded. A single crafted link opened with no confirmation dialog could silently create, authorize, publish, and schedule an autonomous AI agent inside that employee's workspace. The forged agent inherited every enterprise connector already approved, so email, calendar, cloud storage, Slack, Teams, any of that stuff, without any new consent to alert anyone. Once live, it pulled the attacker's inbox for commands on a 5-minute schedule, turning ChatGPT into a covert C2 channel that could exfiltrate data and impersonate the employee indefinitely. OpenAI fixed the issue June 8th. Zenity's Mike Takahashi frames it as an agent trust failure at its core. And the platform trusted that the user had intentionally created and operated the agent when none of that was verified. So this is always my fear with these agent kind of situations where if it's really good, no one's going to detect it because it's working exactly like it should. But what does it kind of reveal about these platforms when the thing that's trusted is a URL parameter rather than any actual like bizarre user action?
I think this is a scary thing. You've heard of like regular cross-site request forgeries. Now we have that with AI. Let's go make some AI agents in people's workspaces. That's pretty pretty bad, right?
Yeah.
And persistence game is could probably be pretty well fleshed out, probably to the point where AI it doesn't. You can probably have some code spin up your AI agents and take them down because right now I think workspace agents are kind of visible for the most part. So I feel like for the most part you would see this to some degree, at least running, and you would ask
Hmm.
yourself why is it running. So I don't know. I feel like there's definitely some more tricky things that we're going to have to start looking out for in the future where if this is actually taken to the next little step. I know this was like a research paperish type thing, so I definitely think we're going to have to see where this goes because I think it
Yeah.
can get much more dangerous from here.
100%. And I think Sean, you mentioned it, right? Like the key in here is that it worked as intended, right?
Yeah.
I was doing some research on this specific topic. It caught my eye, right? Like uh, even if you set your own like your own desktop application in like supervised mode where you have to approve everything, it doesn't matter because it's all within the agent parameters and trust that you gave to the agent. So it doesn't matter if you have not given in permissions to do all of that. The agent by
Hmm.
itself, by its nature of the agent alone, it's it's working as expected, right? And the problem with that is how much like yeah when I saw like OpenAI fixing the issue, like should have they, right? Like it's not a problem. That's how the agent was configured, right? It's the it they fix it in a way of like putting more guardrails, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but I think it's a problem of one awareness, right? Like how much are we people trusting our agents and what random agents are we importing into or I know we throw every episode we throw shade at AI, but in this specific case, it's more like to the humans using the AI, right? Like, hey, what
Exactly.
are
That's
you
what I was going to
importing?
say. It's not shade at AI, it's shade at poorly using AI.
Yeah,
And agentic stuff is like, it's agentic. It's going to take action. So, like, you got to
yeah,
think about that before you enable something.
Can't blame the user 100% on this one because they just visited a URL, and based on reading the paper, my understanding is that just by visiting, it executed the hook to create an AI agent.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
you can't
sure,
necessarily blame the user on this one 100%. It was definitely a bug that needed to be fixed, and I'm glad they fixed it. But I think
yeah,
we're gonna have to watch out for now's the time to take stock of your own workspaces and making sure that you know all the agents that are in your own
Exactly.
workspaces. And in the future, keep track of your workspaces to some degree and audit them. So
I think more than anything, it's a wake up call.
yeah,
Like,
yep,
yeah, I don't think it is fair to blame the user in this case, but it is like, holy smokes, like, this is going to make me think twice about how I operate in the future, and I think a lot of people should.
yeah,
also, maybe stop running AI agents on your phone when you're visiting more
right,
random links in general. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're
yeah,
not checking everything on our phone.
no.
We're just not.
Talking about like next steps, something I'm envisioning is like I know with cloud you have this remote mode, and I was thinking exactly what Kendrick mentioned, right? Like if you have remote mode enabling your phone and your desktop, and you got that cross request on your phone, it gets sent to your desktop, and you know how much more access you will have. Like it will be kind of convoluted, but
Hmm.
it's feasible, right? It's
Yeah.
feasible that, and also something that I've seen a trend is this. These add-ons for your Chrome, your Firefox that uses your AI account to scrape the websites. So it's kind of the
Mhm.
same situation, right? Like just by visiting the site and just because you have that add-on enabled by default, it will scrape everything and run things, right? So yes, maybe don't blame the user, but at the same time, it's like just remember that you're accessing random websites. Maybe it's tricky. I know it's tricky.
Yeah. That's why I'm still using a Mac 2 over here. Like,
A
that's why
small
my camera
callback.
cuts out all the time.
This is a small callback to what I said a couple of episodes ago, maybe, where I said websites embedding anti-agent stuff in them. Well, now you're probably going to start seeing, that used maliciously to some degree as well. So we're seeing
Yeah.
a natural progression. I feel
Yeah.
like.
All right. So let's see. Also from the hacker news this week, GitHub cuts public bug bounty payouts, moves top rewards to VIP tier. File under had to happen sooner or later. Beginning July 27th, GitHub cut its public bug bounty payouts by at least half at every severity tier. Critical findings drop from as much as 30,000 to a flat 10,000, while creating a permanent invite-only VIP tier that keeps critical payouts starting at 30,000 for vetted researchers. GitHub says the restructuring is meant to cut through a flood of low-quality AI-generated reports, overwhelming its triage team. And it's the fourth major bug bounty program to restructure or narrow its scope in 2026, joining Google, BugCrowd, and HackerOne's Internet Bug Bounty program. Newcomers to this public program now face a 4-submission trial period before they can build the track record needed for VIP consideration. You don't earn more by submitting more, GitHub said. You earn more by submitting better. GitHub coming in with the dad advice. I love it. The change follows a May 2026 policy shift that already required working proof of concept exploits and demonstrated impact before submission. What does this do to the incentive game? I mean, does this take the wind out of anyone's sails, or is this kind of just expected?
We already saw this though. Like when Bug Bounty first started, it was a lot of public programs, and then a lot of programs started going private because they were getting a lot of submissions. And now we're seeing AI, and then even those private ones are probably not too happy with the amount of AI that's being used in them. So I think we're just again seeing the ramifications of everybody having AI and everybody using it, and then all these companies not being happy that they're getting all these low quality reports. And then we've seen lots of different programs either cut the bounties entirely to incentivize people to stop looking, or maybe only look at the people that are actually dedicated to securing those particular products, because those are the only people that are going to submit to no bounty programs for the most part. And now we have these higher end programs that are generally, they have public portions of them, but most of the time they're running private programs as well, who are also now cutting their payments because it's just getting too much. And now you're going to have that one person that submits really like 3 good high quality reports, and on their third one or their fourth one, they're going to submit that really low quality one, and then they're going to get banned from the program, and then we're going to see a non-responsible disclosure, and because they're disgruntled. So who knows?
Yeah.
We're probably going to see some Wild West stuff going on here soon. So
Yeah. And we have seen this happen before, right? With companies cutting down their VDPs, and something that almost always happen, right? Not saying it will happen, but will likely happen is
Crossing fingers here.
looking at one. I think can mention, right? One is the very private companies that buy your exploits, your 0 days, right, for themselves for their testing.
Yeah.
And here thing is the darknet markets, right? Like dark web markets, where it's very competitive, where you are getting tractors paying 10, 20,000 for a 0 day for an access, right? So when it's hard for operators, right? Like let's think about an operator, a book bounty person that does that the entire year round, right? Like he can get either top 10,000 from GitHub, and that's it. And he needs to pass the whole vetoing system to get approved and whatnot, right? Or he can get 20,000 from a random state sponsor actor and call it a day, right? I know. It's very intricate, right? Like I know ethics and whatnot, but let's be realistic, right? Like it's their job; they want to get money. Again, hopefully they go the right way, but this has happened.
But not everyone's going to. Yeah.
And the barrier to entry is getting substantially lower for finding the basic vulnerabilities now. Like AI can do it, right, for the most part. Sometimes it refuses, and you got to poke and prod it, but it'll do it eventually. So that is probably another thing where we're going to see is that you're right, Sergio. We're probably going to see maybe a little bit of a rebound, because to the darknet slash Zerodium, whatever they call themselves these days. That's buy and sell exploits. And it's just like, you know, what can you do? Like these people probably want money, and they used to have a legitimate way of getting it, and now they're gonna turn to probably less legitimate ways of getting it, which is very unfortunate. I do wish these bug bounty programs would maybe take another look at how they're intaking vulnerability reports, fight AI
Yeah.
with AI, just like a lot of the places have done. Maybe that's a better solution so you don't alienate people and make it harder for people to report vulnerabilities to you, especially when they're in the critical range of, we're only going to pay you $10,000 for this critical because you're not part of our trusted program. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're right, Sergio.
Yeah, maybe
You're
we
not
can survey
platinum
with
status.
our maybe we can survey with our audience, right? Like, hey, do you want to get paid 10,000 or 20,000?
I think
I think I
we
know
can
what
do
they're gonna
math.
say.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I almost feel worst for the influencers because I know they're out there. I don't know how I haven't been fed this based on my social media usage, but like, there's got to be influencers out there that are just saying like, I made $30,000 this month without even doing anything because my agents are doing bug bounties.
Those people
Those
exist.
guys have a
Yeah.
rude awakening. I'm so sorry.
Well, it's not going to stop them for the most part, right? They'll probably just refine their reports and maybe add an extra agent to verify their reports. Like it's going to cost them maybe an extra grand in time and cloud usage or whatever agent they're using. So
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like I hope they take the better thing of like let's improve their own bug bounty reporting system rather than going to the relative dark side
Yeah.
of vulnerabilities.
For sure. All right. Let's talk for a second about this from Security Week too. Origin Energy. Australian energy giant Origin Energy confirmed a breach after a hacker claimed on July 24th to have stolen the data of 2 million customers and threatened to leak it. At the time of reporting, Origin had not disclosed the initial access vector or independently confirmed the attacker's claimed numbers. This marks Origin's second major disclosed incident within months. The company already reported a separate breach affecting 900,000 Australians earlier this year. Origin is a major electricity and gas retailer, putting billing, contact, and account data for millions of Australian customers at stake across both incidents, and no ransomware or extortion group has yet been publicly tied to this July claim. What does it usually mean from an operator when a second major breach at the same company surfaces within just a few months of the first? Like, are we thinking same door left open, or is this just like Swiss cheese, just holes everywhere?
Think from the operator side of things, this is more of a Swiss cheese thing that is going on, or they're
Yeah,
just really good with their fishing and they just got like two people relatively same time ish. They got a really good fish
sure.
maybe, or it's not looking great for their security team making things secure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, normally what's happening is exactly that, right? Like the timing Kendrick just mentioned is important, right? Like a breach of this size of this type of companies is like you get at the at the time of the breach you get like several accesses and you start
Mhm.
burning them, right? Probably what just happened is that they burned the first and they just tried again and whoops, there's it. Uh, and what is interesting in here is how from operator side, but not necessarily like how you will use a bridge, but looking at perhaps your customers, uh, the relative peers of this company, right? Like, hey, there's an actor out there using specific techniques against this industry. So their attack surface, how much similar is that versus the rest of your customers, right? Like, I think that's the interesting part. How well can you prepare to help your customer defend themselves, right? Providing them with kind of proactive information on like if this happened twice to an oil electricity company, well, something shady is going on, right? Like, I think that's
Mhm.
the interesting part to investigate, despite this specific one. Like, yeah, bad luck for them, being hit twice.
Yeah. Well,
The
I
other
think
one
this is
was
also interesting in that this is, as a utility company, this is not like I shop at this store, but they got hacked and they were irresponsible, and now I'm going to shop at this other store. No, like you got to have power. So like they can keep getting hacked and people still have to pay for this.
Yeah.
On the other hand, does that kind of open it up to this like public good? Like we just need to step in and like someone come in and fix all this. I guess how does that change being like that kind of exclusivity of utilities?
That's how it works in the US is like power like exclusivity, like there's only generally one power provider. I'm not quite sure if that's the same in Australia, but
That's
if
a
it
good point. Yeah.
but if it is, then yeah, it's somewhat of a problem. But also what the information that they got is probably going to be used for targeting their customers later on. At least, the information that is out there right now, what they were able to obtain access to, which is PII of the customers. So that's
Mhm.
ultimately probably just going to get wrapped up into a database, sold off to somebody that's going to like run scams for Australia. So, and that's a big market. Like that market is unfortunately very large, and
Yeah.
scams are a problem for every country out there. And like people's like, oh, US gets scammed a lot. And it's like, well, if you look at it, a lot of countries that have money or anywhere that has more money than other countries, they tend to be victims of scams, especially if they can speak the language. English is very common, so they tend to be an easy target for the most part because you got a super wide base of people.
Yeah.
Um, but also like German speaking country, French, like all those people are targets as well, uh, and we see phishing go out for those individuals that are targeted in scams. So Australia, part of the English speaking group, they're probably just going to be targeted more consistently in the future here.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good point. Well, so far we have been talking about trust in technology. And an interesting turn on that is trust in competition. I recently caught up with Bishop Fox's own Dan Petro to discuss cheating in Super Smash Bros. Melee, the cat and mouse game between cheaters and investigators, and why some of the same adversarial thinking we use in cybersecurity shows up in a 25-year-old fighting game. Super Smash Bros. Melee is nearly 25 years old, but it's still one of the most competitive fighting games in the world. And wherever you find competition, you're eventually going to find people looking for an edge. Our next guest is Dan Petro, along with maintaining the SLP Enforcer tool. He helps investigate cheating allegations within the Melee community. Today, we're talking about the surprisingly sophisticated ways people try to cheat and how they get caught. Dan, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
So when I first saw this come across my desk, I get notifications about when people are speaking at conferences about this and that, cloud hacking, about AI development, all these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And when something comes across about Super Smash Bros. Melee, it kind of sticks out. I guess my first thought of how you cheat in Melee, because any of us who have played it accuse our friends sitting on the couch right next to us of somehow cheating.
Right.
I picture like a game genie or something tangible like that. But what's it actually look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first off, the GameCube is a disk-based system, so you can't use a game genie. That wouldn't work. But the point stands. So so the Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube, as you said, is just about 25 years old. I was there the day that it came out. I've been playing it ever since. So this has been a hobby of mine for a really long time. And ever since I've been into information security, I've taken this hobby in a different direction. I've been trying to like automate playing the game, and lately it's been around like trying to investigate cheating instances. So what does that look like broadly? I think that one good way to think about it is to split it up into two distinct categories, offline and online. So the GameCube, of course, is in the offline era. It doesn't even have internet capability. If you wanted to get your GameCube online, there isn't even a way to do that. With an asterisk. I think technically
there was a little attachment for Phantasy Star Online.
They're like only existed in Japan for Phantasy Star Online. But like 99.9% of the time, there isn't a way to, there's no online games on the Nintendo GameCube. So like, what are you talking about? An online mode. So you have to understand that for Melee specifically, there is a community created and run online mode called Slippy. You kind of see the green thing right here. This is for Project Slippy. That added a replay system into the game, and then also kind of built into that an online mode. So you can play against opponents using rollback netcode seamlessly online. It's great. And this happened right in the middle of COVID too. So it was like at the time when the community couldn't meet up in person, but we were finally able to play this game online in like a really good way. That puts a lot of online modes that major other publishers created to shame too. Like the online mode is really good. So the offline instances of cheating are like maybe a lot more about what you might have expected. So actually, before I get into that, I wanted to mention one thing. The word cheating is very loaded. I come also from the background of Magic the Gathering, as you can probably tell from behind me, which has very specific definition of cheating that I actually really like. In order to be cheating, it has to be three things. It has to, you have to have one, violated the rules. So that's obvious. But that's not only one category. That's not all three. You needed to have done so on purpose, and you needed to do so in order to gain a competitive advantage. So all three things must be true in order for it to be cheating. Otherwise, it's just an accidental mistake or something else happened. So some other good examples, I can give some good examples as we go forward as to like, why all three things are really important. So a lot of the cheating that you'll see that might occur offline, meaning at real in-person tournaments where you're sitting across from somebody, right? It's a high-stakes environment. People care about these tournaments. But also, it's an environment that is inherently difficult to cheat at because you're sitting right next to your opponent. So like if they plugged in a computer like to the GameCube or something, right? Like you might notice. Shenanigans are much more physically apparent when you're in that kind of environment. But nonetheless, this is a problem, specifically because of these things. This is the GameCube controller. As I mentioned, the GameCube is 25 years old, and they don't make these things anymore. And so if you wanted to play Melee, you need a good controller, one that can like play the game at a high level, and the analog sticks in particular, this over here, wears out over time. And because they don't make these things anymore, that means that the price started to skyrocket. And so one angle, the communities come at this from a bunch of different angles. One of them is that we've created a number of, they call box style controllers. So if you're more familiar with like a Street Fighter or something like that, it's like a fight stick where rather than like analog sticks, it's all just buttons. And so they made a number of these controllers that we can create as a community, basically. And there's arguably some ergonomic benefits to basically playing the game typing like a keyboard, but although all that aside, certainly there's a strong argument just from the perspective of like, well, it's a community created controller. So a lot of people use these things. They want them to be in place. But it also is a strong rift since now you're controlling your character in a completely different way. And so long story short, the community created a rule set that says like those style controllers that are fully digital, that don't have any analog buttons on them, have to adhere to a certain set of rules. So like when you move when you press buttons to move your joystick like left and right, it has to have an emulated amount of travel time between. Otherwise, if you just press left and right, it'll instantly switch between left and right. And there's reasons why that can be very strong in the game. Or there's restrictions around dash dancing. There's restrictions specifically around smash DI, which is like this silently broken technique inside of Melee that humans are not able to fully exploit just because it's incredibly difficult to perform. But it's actually a lot easier on those box style controllers. And so there's some rules around like basically at the firmware level on those controllers, they have to have restrictions on how fast you're able to like move your joystick back and forth, things like that, to nerf the controller in some way. And so first and foremost way to cheat, quote unquote, at a tournament in Super Smash Brothers Melee is to use one of these controllers that is illegal, that the community has deemed to be not legal.
Yeah.
And so this is a problem that can be somewhat automated. So I created a tool. It's called the SLP Replay Enforcer. So after every game of Melee that is played in a modern setting, both online and at a major offline tournament, the game using Slippy will record a replay of the game. So a replay is not a movie file. It's not just like a video of the game. It basically records all the button presses that both players had during the game. And then also some game state information about like whether you're standing or not, or what exact animation the character is in, things like what your current health is, things like that. And so what we do is we can run those replays through a like statistical analysis checker, also some hard heuristics to say like what is the likelihood that this was played using an illegal controller? Like what is the what are the odds of that basically? And so in some cases it's a statistical analysis, and we give a direct odds breakdown, like what are the chances of like this having been performed at random versus like using a legal controller. In many cases, we can just say specifically at specific heuristic-based evidence that like this is an illegal series of inputs. Like you're not allowed to press the buttons this fast, basically. And so that way, tournaments can automatically plug replays into this tool. It's already built into a lot of the systems that tournament organizers use to automatically detect like this person is using a controller that is not kosher.
Yeah.
And additionally, it's not just those box style controllers. Even these guys can hide small computers. So often they'll have like an Arduino built into the case, and you can use that to automate in some cases like full like button presses. You can run macros. So like if you just like surreptitiously press like a button down here, it'll like perform some combo automatically for you or something like that. And so we can do some checks to like look for that kind of thing too.
It seems like the sky's the limit with what you could do inside one of those controllers. Are there any cases where you just kind of had to stop and say, all right, that's good game. That's a clever hack.
Yeah, well, so at least there are many instances of the rule set. So there is this document you can look up that is the official controller rule set. And many of the restrictions inside of that are just empirically unenforceable from a looking at the button presses perspective. So one really good example of this is that there's a restriction on the location of the buttons on the face of the controller, so that you're not allowed to put buttons on the back side of the controller. And there's reasons for this that we don't have to get into here.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at a digital file of button presses, there's no way to tell where the button physically was it on the back side of the. There's just no way to do that. So basically, not every rule is enforceable from this perspective. But that's one of those things where when you're there in person with someone at an offline event, like you could just see there's a button, like they're pressing a button on the back side.
Yeah.
So it's pretty safe from that perspective. Things do get hairier when you talk about online events. So online events are, generally speaking, treated less seriously, with less gravitas as offline events do. That said, we still do care about them. And so we tried as best as possible to prevent whatever shenanigans we can in the online space as well. And so this is encompasses the offline instances as well. So that basically the same ways you would cheat offline by using illegal controllers, things like that, apply here. But then also there's some unique online specific considerations. So one good example of this was somebody who just tried to fake lag. So the game tries to tries to use its rollback netcode system to smooth over a lot of the rough edges of network latency in an online environment. But it's not always perfect. And so sometimes if you've got like a really bad connection from person to person, because the game is peer-to-peer, then you might be having a suboptimal game experience, basically.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely one instance in which a person had played an official game that was in an online tournament, and then afterward tried to claim that like the game was super laggy and really bad for them, at that they wanted to have the game be replayed. And so this was a thing that got brought to my attention after the fact. This was all post hoc. And then asked, like, was this real? Like, was this actually a laggy game? How could we possibly know? And so, again, the replays can tell the tale here, since the way that the input system works inside of a rollback netcode system is that anytime that there is a network lag event, it gets reported as a rollback. So we see that in the inputs.
Yeah.
So we can basically see all the instances in which rollbacks happened, and that will be a metric that can tell us pretty directly one-to-one how laggy the game was. It's right there in the replay file. So it was simply a matter of gathering the replays from both players and then seeing from both of their perspectives, because of course it's peer-to-peer game, like, was it a very laggy game? And we could just see that the answer was no.
I would love to have that power when I play Rocket League.
Yeah.
And my teammates say, "I'm sorry, it's lag." No, it's not.
Yeah.
What's the process look like if someone reports a suspected cheater? What's an investigation start as?
Yeah, so again, there's a pretty good split between on and offline. So at an offline event, there's typically a person who is there at the events. So at some of the larger events like Genesis that just happened, it was a good friend of mine, is Eric Lee, goes by Violence online. And so he's there like in person checking controllers and running them through the tool that I created. And then we're often in direct conversation about, like, you know, is this suspicious or not? So one of the troubles, of course, with this whole scenario, and why I wanted to circle back to the 3 rules of whether or not something is cheating, is specifically this problem that just because you used a controller that's not technically legal doesn't mean you're cheating. So this comes in a few varieties. One of which is that if you just go onto Amazon or whatever store it is and buy one of these rectangle controllers, it will almost surely come to you with a firmware that is not considered legal by the community, which is unfortunate. That's not great. We don't like it. We've been trying to work with the vendors there, but that's just simply the reality. And so if somebody just buys a controller and just doesn't know all of this stuff, and then shows up to their like local or shows up to even a like medium or large size tournament, they might be violating the rules and literally not know about it. And they're not trying to do it to cheat. They just like weren't aware that this whole thing existed. And so at the tournament, you have the ability to like reflash the firmware of the controllers, basically. So once you're, at least at Genesis, the like large, probably the biggest tournament of the year, the way they ran it was round 1, they just let everybody play. We then investigated all of the inputs from all the controllers for everybody played from round 1, found the people that were using the illegal controllers, and then did a follow-up on those. And the vast, vast majority of them are just like people who, you know, found their way into borrowing a friend's controller, and they're not a serious competitor. They're just like borrowed a controller, or they just bought this thing online and they just used it the first time or whatever. Or in some cases, they're clearly not using it for competitive advantage, where you have some people who try to do like fun things, like they'll play with a Guitar Hero controller, because you can actually do that. So you can like get an adapter and play the game with Guitar Hero, like you're like strumming to like Dash Dance or something.
Yeah.
Or like they're not going to be in the top 8. They're not. You know, they're
let
just
them have
memeing.
their fun.
Just let them have their fun. It's technically illegal, but like whatever, right? They're not doing this for competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, you run into somebody who is like a top 100 player. So who's a known quantity, the community knows them, like their name would be somebody you would recognize, and they show up round 1 using an illegal controller. You're like, ooh, like that is more suspicious. Like that's somebody who should know better, who nonetheless shows up to the largest tournament of the year using a firmware that's not legal. So that's the kind of thing that we are like really keeping our eyes out for.
Yeah. Now, do you find, and you don't have to name names, but you certainly
also,
can.
In the DEF CON talk, I'm not going to be naming specific names, so we're not going to be dropping any specific accusations against specific people. These have all been taken care of, so it's going to be fully anonymized. No,
do you ever find like people who they're detected, they're caught basically, and whether they were intentional or not, off the bat, or you thought it was intentional or not, Do you see people kind of repeat offending and trying to get around your detection and like kind of the cat and mouse game of cybersecurity?
Yeah, I do think that we don't see a ton of like cat and mouse stuff specifically in Melee. I think that I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the effect of your controller on the game is pretty subtle. One of the underlying realities behind all this is that Melee as a game is extremely low variance, where the better player wins almost every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely high skill cap. A great example of this is that a very good friend of mine who I played a bunch with in high school ago, I played back in the day, was Tony, is a Taj in the local Arizona Melee scene. And I have, and this is true, never taken a single game from him ever. And we must have played many hundreds of games, just hanging out, like late at night at a friend's place where he's playing Bowser and I'm trying to beat him. It doesn't matter. 3 a.m. in tournament, I've literally never beaten him ever. He's just an order of magnitude better than me at the game, and nothing I ever did mattered. And so it doesn't matter what controller I was holding, it wasn't going to make a difference in that.
Sure.
It does make a difference at the very top level, where like you're trying to eke out tiny advantages. But for the very vast majority of games, what controller you're using kind of just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So there's that. Just take that as background information, where like that's kind of why we mostly care about like what the top players are doing, like basically like the top 100, because those are the most likely people who are like, if you're going to try to cheat, those are the people who are going to do it. Those are the people for whom it would matter the most. Kind of this like low level, like somebody who's going to be making the top 500 of a tournament. Like they're just not going to significantly improve their standing by using an illegal box controller.
Yeah.
That's just the mechanics of the game. So I think for that reason, we haven't seen a huge influx of like cat and mouse, of like people trying to push the limit of like what you can get away with in a controller. And also there's the offline aspect of it where like you're sitting there next to the person. So the amount that you can get away with is kind of limited. In terms of like macros or like other funny business going on with your controller. Online things are different, where it is a small and insular community. And so often, even in an online setting, the person who you're playing against. There isn't many millions of people who play this game. And if you're really good, we probably already know who you are. So the chances of somebody just showing up at an online event and like doing really well it's just like not very likely. So there's that. And also this is one of those games that is very expressive, and we could probably just tell who you are simply from your gameplay. So you can just watch a video of somebody playing, like, oh, like that's obviously so-and-so. So anyway, trying to cheat online is already hazardous, given all that context. But there's a number of like online things you can do to like try to like DOS your opponent as they're playing, or like send reset kind of pseudo packets like in the game stream. I actually gave a whole presentation one time at CactusCon here in Phoenix, specifically around exactly that topic, about like some of the low level networking things you can use to try to cheat in the game.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious also, you've been in offensive security so long. How do you think that mindset kind of affects how you go about investigating cheating? Like, do you think in terms of what would I do, and what are the kind of creative ways I could come up with it?
Yeah, so there's always like kind of two ways you can go about it. There's the like, what would I do? What is theoretically possible? Like, what are the ways that, given infinite resources and infinite intelligence, that someone could be cheating at this endeavor? I think that's a good thing to do, to like, sky's the limit. Like, let's take this and run with it. And that's a lot of the research that I do. That's a lot of the work that we do as a company, or certainly the tack that I like to take with it in terms of cheating at Melee. There's another way you can take it, which is much more threat model based. And this is true of cybersecurity, but also in this specific instance of like, rather than imagining the attacker with infinite resources, let's take the actual likely threat actors that we really do have, and say, with the given resources and attack patterns that they're likely to employ, what are the ways that we can detect or prevent that? And so we actually have a pretty good idea of what that would look like in the Melee world, which is like, specific like Arduinos. People are using Goom Waves, which is a specific kind of one of these analog controllers. And we also have a pretty good handle on who those people would be, since they're probably going to be a like top 100 level player, and that's a pretty known list almost by definition. So I think both like aspects are completely valid and worth exploring.
The simplest explanation for a cheat is often the correct. I think that's Yoshi's Razor, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I don't know. Well, before I let you go, when I saw this come across my desk for the first time, definitely stuck out as a Melee player myself. I had to pop the question: who's your main?
Mm-hmm. So I alas, don't play a ton of Melee these days anymore. I mostly engage in the community in other ways, but I played like Marth and Falco competitively back when I was like in the competitive scene more frequently. Though I started out playing Ness.
Yeah.
So when the game came out, I was a Ness player. And it was only like a little bit later when like we started realizing this game had some competitive like depth to it, that it became apparent that Ness was actually just a really bad character.
Yeah.
And so I started playing some.
But yeah, he's not a competitor.
Yeah. So it's great to yo-yo glitch people with. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I'm literally going to fire up the GameCube tonight. If you are heading to DEF CON, be sure to check out Dan's talk, Catching Cheaters in Super Smash Bros. Melee, where he'll share more stories from the investigations and dive deeper into how these detection techniques work. Dan, thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
I love cheat analysis. Like, figuring out where people end up like cheating their way through something is awesome. Like, there's a few YouTube channels that are out there that do that. Like the analysis factor of like, oh, this run was cheated, and I find those videos like very interesting. So yeah.
No,
like you can tell like
no respect for video game cheaters. No.
Oh, yeah.
I get mad enough losing honorably. I don't need cheaters involved.
Oh yeah.
I'm throwing the controller either way.
I think for researching purposes, it is pretty fun, right? Like looking at the limits of like the memory of a game and seeing how you can like that's interesting, right? But yeah, like cheating like online, okay, no, that's
get out of here with that. Yeah. All right, well, in Melee, investigations are about preserving trust in a competition. In cybersecurity, they're about restoring trust after it's been broken. Our final story this week is kind of about that. AI labs ask Washington to pace AI progress. So this is from the Washington Post, saying that more than 1,100 employees across OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, Meta, and other frontier labs signed a public statement published July 28th titled Pacing the Frontier, asking the U.S. government to back an international effort to build the technical and governance tools needed to deliberately slow the rate of automated AI development. Within hours, OpenAI and Anthropic each endorsed it as companies. Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei and co-founder Jared Kaplan signed, alongside OpenAI chief scientist Jacob Pachaki and chief research officer Mark Chen, putting rival labs' top technical leadership behind the same ask. The statement centers on concern over recursive self-improvement, the possibility that AI systems could soon automate their own research and development faster than humans can understand or govern the result. The timing is notable here. The request lands just days after OpenAI disclosed that one of its models, as we discussed, running in an internal test sandbox, broke out and compromised Hugging Face's systems, 4 days ahead of the Trump administration's own deadline to produce a frontier model security framework. So,
yeah,
they're this is like, this reminds me of like the comedy bit where like, you know, you want to like attack someone, so you hold your own shirt and say, I wish someone would, you know, and you hold me back. I feel like pushing the boundaries of developing these with the specific goal that has been stated for them to be able to recursively develop, and then asking for help, like in slowing this. I don't disagree with this statement, but I'm confused by it to some degree. Like I totally get it, but I'm like, what are we doing here?
There's a big conflict of interest here.
Yeah.
Because I believe both of these companies have stated their desire to go public at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So that would never coincide with holding back your own product most of the time.
I believe Dario said something at one point about this could become a public good as well. That like eventually that's how he sees. I could be mixing. I don't know. I don't think it doesn't sound like something Sam Altman would say. I think it was Anthropic. It was saying this should be maybe like, you know, kind of government involved in managing this.
Typically, if it's, you can attribute it to Anthropic as if you know, humans are still in the loop. So
Yeah.
I think to some degree that this is another PR thing that they want to do.
I've seen that go around for sure.
And I'm not quite sure I understand if they just said, hey, we need like 7 of you to like sign this piece of paper, and none of them probably actually really read it. And then they just, you know, published it out there, and we're gonna see.
Also, could have been co-opted. It could have been like some concerned employees and leadership says, "Yeah, let's sign that."
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's probably a better take on it. Yeah.
On the fun side, my first thought was like, are they trying to avoid the Skynet arc for humanity? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
something. Something that I actually see.
This is only an agreement between them, though. Like, this doesn't account for any of the other labs out there, right? I mean, this is all English-speaking, generally, like, communities. There's tons of other communities out there that probably don't care. And they're going to develop what they're going to develop, and it'll be what it will be. And if we're not on the forefront of it, then, you know,
China is. You know,
well, yeah.
I mean, not necessarily the state of China, but like there are plenty of Chinese models that are going to fill that void if we pump the brakes.
Yeah, that's correct. And there's been some criticism on the U.S. side of things where China is doing a bunch of AI distilling from the work that is being done from the U.S. Side of things.
Sure.
And that's also a problem, but it's also one of the problems of like, okay, so if we pump our brakes, now we're having to incentivize China to maybe, you know, implement their own, and maybe they just aren't going to care about pumping the brakes on, you know, the safety mechanisms, because we're already seeing that to some degree, that the AI models that are open models, they don't really care about the safety standards. So, you know, will they bake those safety standards into their own models like that we are? Because we're essentially right now we are hindering ourselves in capabilities to offer it a safer product, and you know that isn't necessarily always going to be respected.
Yep. And the other thing is what is the consumer front of the AI, and the other one is the actual like models used for like advanced research and stuff, right? Like. I think it's just for consumers that can pay like $20 a month, right? Maybe you do want more regulated scenarios, right, to avoid like submissions to GitHub of vulnerabilities with not good quality. Okay, I can see that. But like, I think we will need to see those or what they are actually pushing for. But apart from that, yeah, I think it's kind of a PR trick, maybe to slow down, like, you know, using certain words to slow down your competitors, and you're like, no, I'm different, this rule doesn't apply to me, something like that.
I'm not like other AI models.
Yeah, correct. So, but again, I think this is not the first time we have heard Anthropic talking about this, like, hey, regulate us, please, but then keep doing their thing. I think this will not be the last time until like CISA, someone like CISA actually publishes something. I think CISA was one already looking at AIs and how to potentially regulating them. But haven't heard anything yet from them, so it's still to be fine, I guess.
Do you guys think that if we were to slow the pace of development on this, could that lead to more predictable and mappable attack surfaces for attackers? Or is the rapid pace of development itself kind of like what makes it such a sweet attackable vector, I guess?
I don't think it matters.
No?
Yeah.
I say yes, but no. I think slowing down research is not necessarily the right call for the purposes of saving like money or stuff like that. Yeah, there's environmental concerns. Training and models takes a huge amount of energy and that type of stuff, and resources.
Sure.
So I don't think necessarily slowing down the development is going to solve any of these other like attack surface problems or problems related to AI getting better. Because AI will get better over time. I mean, we've already seen it go from AI has really only been around for like 2 years, like really, like in the mainstream, and it's already gotten so much better. Like looking at, there was a Reddit post the other day that I saw where it was like showing a timeline progression of like what the video models would produce in quality.
The old
and like
Will Smith eating pasta.
Yes, that one. And that one, like the first one's terrible. A year ago, terrible. Like today, they're pretty darn good. And I know there's been work at Bishop Fox that has gone into deep fakes and that type of stuff, and that has gotten better over time as well. So it's already to the point where we can probably just keep going, and the ramifications of it keep going are not going to change all that much, in my opinion. And the attack surface of what it can do or what the problems of AI are probably not going to matter all that much short term. We're still a long ways away from self-learning and self-improving AI. We're nowhere close.
At least weeks. No.
at least next week. At least until next week, we're very far away, and then maybe
just
next week
till DEFCON, baby.
Exactly. It's a fun problem that everybody has always been. I think quantum has been one of those ones where we're like one step away. We're like one qubit away from doing something functional with our quantum machine. It's like, okay, well, now we're kind of getting to the same point with AI where it's one step away from doing the thing that we don't want it to do.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this week's Initial Access. Kendrick, Sergio, thank you so much for joining. And of course, thanks to Dan Petro for chatting with us about his Super Smash Brothers project. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend or coworker. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, join us on our Bishop Fox Discord over on the Bishop Fox subreddit, where we talk about the research we're publishing, the stories we're covering, and what practitioners are seeing in the field every week. You'll find links to both communities as well as everything we discussed today in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. We'll catch you next week.